Oh, hello. We are live. Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Call. This is my channel. I'm still alive. I'm here. And this is the piece I'm going to be working on. This is the camera. Why are we being like that? Why are we being like that, camera? Stop. Stop. All right. I'm going to try to get my camera to behave. It doesn't know what it wants to focus on. Even though it's been told to stop doing that, it's doing it anyway. But anyway, hello. I missed last week because I was sick. I'm much better now, not like 100%, but much better than I was, and very happy to be back and hanging out with you all this evening. Anytime, camera. Anytime. Well, it stopped doing the weird freak out thing, but all right. You gonna. All right. Seems to be cooperating now. Okay. All right, so a couple weeks ago, we drew this cool little Scully guy, and this week we are going to ink it. We're going to get it nice and finished up. So I'm going to try to do this as much as possible with a brush. So I'm going to be using my Winsor Newton ink as well as Winsor Newton Series 7 brush, which I will show you in just a moment. That's this one. I'm actually going to use the miniature brush on this, which has a little shorter bristles. It's about half the size of the length of the bristles on a normal one, what I usually use for inking. But we got a lot of extremely tiny little details in here, so we're going to give it a try with the miniature brush. And actually, I'm an old person. I need to switch my glasses. I was wearing my blue light blockers for setting up the stream, but I think I might need readers for these tiny little details. Where are my readers? There they are. Oh, yes. Grandma mode activated. You can see the see the magnification. Oh no, I bumped my camera. Being silly. Okay, stop. Stop being silly now. All right. All right. So this is the juniper skull, part of my new series of skulls that are the boozy skulls. So this one is gin. Got a juniper sprigs and berries skull here. Um, so I'm gonna start with this curve up top here. Ooh, and that needs way more ink in that brush. It's quite dry. So, how has everyone been over the last couple of weeks? I've been bad, quite honestly, which is why I skipped last week. There we go. Now we got it nice and saturated. Oh yeah, that's a skull. Some nice little fusing marks between the different plates. So yeah, I think I mentioned previously, my kids gave me a stomach bug pretty much immediately once they went back to school because that's just, what you do when you go back to school. You drag home illnesses. And that was like already not very fun and lasted for quite a while. And then, like, the stomach bug was finally seemed to be resolving itself. I was no longer suffering from, your typical stomach bug symptoms that we don't need to get into vivid detail in here, but you know what I'm talking about. So those symptoms were finally resolving, and then like, my stomach was still hurting, like, just hurt all the time. And then I noticed that the hurting stomach seemed to actually be getting worse. And I was like, well, that's not good. And it would make me like super nauseous sometimes. And I was also just getting like really exhausted because it just wouldn't stop hurting. I was just hurting all the time. Felt like somebody had just punched me in the stomach and it just didn't go away. And so then last Monday, I called the doctor and I was like, "Can you see me today? I'd rather not spend an indeterminate amount of time at walking care." And they were like, "Yes, we have an appointment open." And they saw me and they were like, "You have gastritis." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't what is that exactly?" It is when the lining of your stomach is inflamed. And sometimes if you have a particularly bad stomach bug, it can just happen because you had a bad stomach bug and your tummy is still like injured low key from that. So uh but they were like, "Well, we'll do like regular labs and stuff and just make sure that you don't have anything else seriously bad going on." And they did all of that and all of that was fine. Like no other bad bugs or anything like disconcerting in my blood work. So that's all good. And they tested to see if I have the bacteria that can cause ulcers. And they were like, "You don't have that. So you probably aren't going to develop an ulcer." And I'm like, "Well, that's good." And they gave me some medicine and it took way too long to start working because they were like, "It'll probably take about a day before it'll start working because it takes a little while to build up in your system." And it did not work for like 3 days. And even then, it, like, took a while to be super effective. It was just, like, after 3 days, I finally felt a little better, and then, like, incrementally have felt a little bit better every day since, so that's good. I'm improving. I'm feeling so much better than I did last week, but yeah, I was just oh my god. Hey, hungry. I'm just, relaying my tales of woe about how frickin' sick I was last week. But yeah, it was, like got me so worn down, and I was like, "I cannot try to go at my normal pace on everything that I normally do and also actually be ready to go to a convention this weekend. That's not going to happen. So I just kind of took it easy last week, which worked out. I was not up to my normal levels of energy for a convention weekend, but at least I made it through the weekend and did not like crash and burn. Oh, look, we've got one little sprig. One little sprig done. But yeah, and then this past weekend, I went to Granite Con, and Granite Con was, as always, a very fun time. It was like the biggest Granite Con ever. Oh, my brush is getting kind of dry again. Um, yeah, it was way bigger than it's ever been before. So many people there. And they like expanded out so that it wasn't just, hey, if there's a reason I ink with a brush instead of a pen, because I like it. So I do some inking with a pen, and actually have a few different ones. Let me grab those and I will show you. Ow, and I will try not to stab myself. Hold on, hold on, hold on. So, okay, so I have a bunch of dip pens. I try not to use these little crappy handles anymore because I hate them and they're awful. But this is the good old Hunt 107. I used that almost exclusively for doing a lot of like the hatching and stuff for many years, and sometimes I still use it. This is my school nib. I use this one for lettering, as you can tell by how disgusting the handle is. This I got this handle and I really like this handle, and it's just got this, I forget what this nib is called, but it's just like your basic, I forget the number of it or whatever. It's just like the basic speedball little bellied one that you can get all the time. I don't use this nib very often, but I really like this handle, so I might end up like swapping out from this one because they're the same size. Anyway, and then I have there's a piece of paper towel stuck in there from the last time I cleaned it. Good job. So this is the G nib, and this one I just started using like last year, and it's amazing. It's such a good like all-purpose nib. I use it for lots of different stuff. And this is the nice Tachikawa neoprene holder. I like this one a lot. But yeah, so these are like some of the ones I use the most. And I use them a lot for certain things like let me find an older comic page that has been online for a little bit in chaotic my chaotic mess of a studio. All right, so this is a page that's been online for a little bit. So I will use the nib for doing like all of these little like background textures and like the hatching and like tiny details of like, oh yeah, his little swords back here and like her necklace and stuff like that. So I'll use the nib for a lot of that kind of stuff. But I use a brush for a lot of things because in a brush you can get a lot more expressive line, you can get a lot more variation in your thickness, and it's just I find it a lot more versatile, and I also just tactily I really enjoy it. Um, my first series of skulls I did all in brush as well, and so I'm just kind of trying to get a similar look. Granted, those were executed several years ago now. I did those quite some time ago. But I just kind of want to keep a similar look with this new series to kind of keep it evident that they're like a continuation of the same kind of thing, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's just how I wanted this one to look. It's kind of a challenging doing these itty bitty little bits with a brush. Oh, a Series 7 is a good brush for it. Yes. Yeah, so this is the minis one. This is the one that people would use for miniatures. It's got about half the length of a bristle as the regular Series 7, and it is very super duper responsive and great with wet media. Yeah, so this is a standard Series 7 on top, and this is the miniatures, which is what I'm using right now because it's just a little bit easier to control with the tiny details without worrying about getting overloaded with ink. So, because this one is like, my all-purpose, I use this all the time, but all these little bitty details, it's just very easy to accidentally have a little bit too much ink on your brush and then end up with a disaster, and I don't really wanna do that. But yes, the Series 7 are, very expensive and very, very nice. And I have never, ever found, I don't care what any brush manufacturer says, I have never found a synthetic that performs as well. I'm totally spoiled by these. I say spoiled, but it's like, I do pay handsomely for the privilege of getting to use them. It's like every once in a while, there's a new synthetic brush will come out, and the brush manufacturers will be like, "This is the best synthetic ever. You'll never even know." And I'm like, "Lies. Nothing compares to the fancy weasel hair." "Hello," someone's saying. Oh my gosh, yeah, I've seen those, the videos about how they make the Series 7, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Maybe they should charge as much as they do." Maybe they don't charge enough. It's kinda wild. Oh, yeah, I was starting to talk about GraniteCon, and then I got all sorts of sidetracked. Yeah, so GraniteCon was this past weekend in Manchester, New Hampshire. I was there in the gaming lounge, and it was way bigger than it had been on previous years. So instead of just being in like the greater DoubleTree Plaza as it had been previously, um, they expanded out to also be in the Southern New Hampshire University Arena, which is like across the street. Um, so they had like the expo hall, which they normally have, and then like the ballrooms that are in the DoubleTree, and the armory, which is like basically just like a very nice little gym that's also right next to the DoubleTree. And those are all like that's all like contiguous inside the same building. You never have to go outside between any of them. You just kind of go through a hallway. Um, but then there was too much GraniteCon, and so they had also put some of it over in the Southern New Hampshire University Arena, which was like across the street, but not like across the street, like directly across the street. It was kind of like there's like a little park in front of the DoubleTree, and so you had to get like through the park and then across the street, which I think in most cases would have been fine, but it was like pouring rain all day Saturday. So I kind of wonder if a lot of folks just did not. They got into one building or the other and were like, "No, we're good. We're not gonna go to the other one." As it was, I was in one of the ballrooms right by the armory because I was in the gaming lounge, and that was in one of the ballrooms. So I never made it over to the arena because it was just like, I don't really wanna try to get into a different building. Because the other thing that was different this year is that we had, like, way more, like, security than normal. So it used to always just be that for security, you'd have a couple of, like, facility security guys just kinda standing in the corners, making sure that nothing untoward was happening to their venue. And other than that, like, everybody who was enforcing, like, the event rules and checking badges and everything were just the red shirts, which are the volunteers, or staff or whatever, the people who are working for the convention. Well, this year they had, like, the I don't know if they were, like, venue security or if it was an outside security company that was hired just for the event or what, but they actually had, like, quite a few security staff who were there checking badges and also making everyone go through metal detectors to get into the different parts of the convention, and so, like, on Saturday, I went to go check out the expo hall, which is where a lot of the vendors were and some of my friends were, and they were not at that time, they weren't letting anybody, like, with a guest or an exhibitor badge just kind of, like, skip that giant security line. I guess they changed that later and they started letting them do that because that was kind of ridiculous because the line was enormous. And so I was like, "I can't get in there because I have to get back to my table sometime today." Um, yeah, and by Sunday, they were definitely a lot more like, "Oh, you have an exhibitor badge or a guest badge or whatever? Yeah, go do whatever. We don't care." Um, but yeah, one of my friends went over to get something because some of the, like, celebrities were in the, expo hall, and he went over to get something signed and had to wait in the security line even though he had an exhibitor badge, and then got hassled by security for having a, like, little folding, like, utility knife in his pocket because he was an exhibitor and he had just used it to unpack some of his stuff and set up, like, "Yeah, man, I kinda need it." I don't know. I feel like a lot of times at these events, hired security, it's like I understand they just have a job that they need to do, but sometimes it seems like they don't understand what the event that they're working at is. Like, they don't understand that there are certain places where some of these rules are maybe not quite as hard and fast because of the nature of the event that they're at, but I don't know. That's but because of all of that, I never tried to go over to the arena. But there were a ton of people and I made good sales. Sometimes it felt like I wasn't making that many sales because there were just so many people. But like when I tallied everything at the end of the day, I was like, no, I made good sales. It just seemed like not that many because proportionally to the number of people that there were, it wasn't like, for the gangbusters number of people, it was not a gangbusters number of sales. It was just like, yeah, those were good sales, if that makes sense. Just didn't seem proportionate. But I had a most excellent time. Always very fun seeing the Granite Con folks, seeing my friends that make it down for that one, or I guess up. I'm the only one that goes down for that one, really. Realistically, I'm the only one who lives further north than Granite Con. The panel was good. So I got to be on a panel on Sunday afternoon that was about art in RPGs with a few other cool folks. Um, I can't remember anybody's last name. Brian and Alan, who worked on Vast Grimm. Alan does a bunch of work for a bunch of different publishers. He's done a bunch of like Magic cards and all sorts of stuff. His work is freaking awesome. And Matthew of Monomyth and I can't remember the other guy's name. I feel bad, but he was all the way at the other end. I was, like, at one end of the panel, and he was all the way at the other end of the panel, and I couldn't even, like, really see him. I don't remember his name. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, other guy that was on the panel with us. You were totally cool. I just don't remember your name because also I've met and hung out with Matthew, like, several times, and this is the first and I had to, like I played a game with him Saturday night and totally did not remember his name, and then the next morning, I was finally like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Dude, what is your name?" And he's like, "Matthew?" And I'm like, "Okay, good. I'll remember that now. I promise." And see, I did. I'm still saying it. It'll actually wedge itself in my brain someday. But yes, the panel was very good. We talked about, um all sorts of art stuff in RPGs. A lot of it was questions about like how art works into the workflow of RPGs and like the inspiration, like what comes first, your art ideas or your game ideas, and a lot of there were questions from the audience about like, how do you get a career in doing arts in games and fun stuff like that. I always enjoy being on panels. This is if anybody who is watching runs conventions that I am gonna be at. I love to be on panels. I like to yak at people about my ideas. This is why when people are like, "Do you want to be on my podcast?" I'm always just like, "Yes, please let me tell people my opinions." This brush has a little bit too much ink on it. Oh, little berries, little sprig. There's like a very dense cluster of berries in here. Trying not to let it get too heavy. Let's see. And oh yeah, on Saturday we played games. I made people play Battle of the Boy Bands with me because I love Battle of the Boy Bands. And I don't get to play it at home very much because it's like it requires at least 3 players and it's a little bit too advanced for my kids yet. Yes, I'll have to bring Battle of the Boy Bands over to your house sometime. Make you play. I also just like it. It's a very convenient little cotton game because it's a small box game. It fits in your backpack pretty easily. It takes almost no time to teach. And once you're one round into it and you get what's going on, people are usually just like, oh, this is very fun. And it's like, yes, you're supposed to play 6 rounds to see who wins, but the rounds go pretty quickly. And if you have to stop for whatever reason, like you're just playing in between some other stuff that's going on and you don't get to finish all 6 rounds, then it still works just fine to be like, "Okay, well, we only played, like, 4 rounds, but who's in the lead? Alright, we'll say you win." You know? Yay, alright, got the ones back there. Just lurking, yay! Well, yeah, I got to hang out with Higgins, and I got to hang out with Allele, who doesn't usually show up on these streams very often, but another one of my internet friends, and Mr. Tony Vandenberg, Black Moon Games. I don't get to see Tony very often either, and it's good to hang out with him. I think it's oh yeah, that's right. I was gonna say it's a Tuesday. Aren't you normally streaming, Higgins? Oh no, that's right. Higgins is taking this week off from streaming. Sometimes that's what you gotta do. You gotta take a little break. I did last week and I feel honestly a lot better because I'm not partially like I just got a chance to physically recover a little bit, but also it was nice to not like get more stressed because I was like, "Oh no, I'm still trying to stream and I'm not getting enough rest and also feeling crappy and blah 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 blah." Blah." Like it was just I just said, "No, I'm not going to do the other things this week. I'm just going to rest this week." And that helped quite a bit. Sometimes that's what you need to do. It is 8:35 and I've gotten just one little section of berries done. These things take forever. These tiny little details take forever. All right, I'm gonna take a little break from the juniper and do a little bit of the skull. More little lines. Usually we have a million shows to watch this time of night, but tonight we weren't feeling any of it. Season changes mean brain funks. So instead we're watching videos and crafting. Yes, crafting and watching. Good stuff. Well, come on. I'm not trying to dry brush here. What are you doing? I need more ink than that. I also don't want a big glob of water from rinsing to just like fall onto here. Let's not do that. All right, yay. There's that. I think we need a little bit more. I think it needs just a little more shading over here. This area is all a little bit more flat. Or like curving in a little bit more. Jaw. Why? Why? Why are you being dry, brush? I don't want you to be dry. I want more ink on there. We'll say the miniatures brush tends to like dry out a lot faster than the full size brush, and then I have to like just rinse it all out and reload it with ink, which can be a little bit annoying, but again, I'm using it for things where I really would be better off using the full size brush. It's very good for all this little fiddly stuff, but for some of these larger areas, I should just be using a full size brush. But I don't want to change brushes. Okay, why are you splitting now? It's a really interesting angle to try to do a nose from. Try to do a skeletal nasal cavity. Rah, okay, I think that actually worked out pretty well. I was a little bit anxious about how that was gonna happen, but it seems to be doing okay. How close are we going to get to done by the end of the hour is the question. All right, now on to teeth. This reference skeleton had some gnarly teeth, which are just kind of very fun to work on. Oh yes, teeths. Some good teeths. I need to re-wet my brush though. It's getting crusty. All right, so we're gonna get most of the way. I'm not gonna finish all of this, I don't think, because there's quite a bit of that left, and it takes a very long time. But we're gonna be most of the way there. Oh, and now that's coming out all watered down. Don't be like that. All right, we're in the last 10-ish minutes of the stream. So while I am still trying not to completely get lost in these tiny details, I am going to do the YouTube things and remind you I'm Amanda Call, and this is my channel. I do these art streams just about every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Pretty much the only times I skip are is when something comes up or when I'm super sick, like I was last week. Um, but if you subscribe, then you can get the little like channel notifications. And if you follow me on other social medias, I try to keep everybody updated. I'm active to varying degrees on pretty much all the platforms as either Age of Night or Amanda Call Art. Age of Night is my weekly webcomic, and that you can read at ageofnight.com. That's AGEOFNIGHT.com. That updates just about every Wednesday, and you can read the whole thing online for free. And while you can read the comic for free or watch these streams for free, if you would like to help support me, there's a number of ways you can do that. You can become a patron over on Patreon, patreon.com/ageofnight. Patrons always get their comics a week early, as well as other fun updates and things. I just sent my highest tier patrons a little fun little package of stuff, like I do every once in a while. And that included a couple of new little zines and some stickers. If you are more into doing like a one-off donation or buying some merchandise from me, I also have a Ko-fi, whatever you want to call it, ko-fi.com/Amanda Call Art. What do I have coming up? Nothing this weekend, but the following weekend I will be a guest artist at Bangor Comic and Toy Con in Bangor, Maine. So that is the first weekend in October. All right. I think that's going to do it for this evening. I'm going to do the last little bit off camera there because I don't have a lot left, but we are at time. So thank you everybody for coming and hanging out with me this evening. I will see you all next time. Bye.